Hey guys, quick and easy video for today. Today we're going to teach you how we find boondocking spots, whether it's urban or completely remote, beautiful camping spots, because we have seen some amazing sites all across the country. There are all rules and misconceptions out there. A lot of things that we simply don't subscribe to. For example, that you should have to stealth camp. Obviously, here with our almost 25-foot travel trailer and a diesel pickup truck, we're not stealth camping. No, not in the slightest. Another one is that you can only stay at Walmart's overnight,
or that you can always stay at Walmart's overnight.
And as you can see here, no overnight parking. All other vehicles will be towed. But as we have seen across the country, we have stayed at plenty of places where there were no overnight parking signs, and sometimes they just simply don't care. They have that there for the city.
Right. There are some cities that have put in ordinances that say no camping in vehicles, no overnight sleeping in vehicles, whatever. And so they have to put the signs up in the parking lot, but then Walmart doesn't necessarily support that policy, so they don't enforce it.
And a good rule of thumb, though, is if it's a nicer Walmart, say like this, or a 24-hour Walmart, we've had pretty good success with that. A nicer one, nice and clean, there's not people staying there for like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days or longer, right? You're usually okay. Stay out of the way. Maybe ask if you so choose, but I cannot remember the last time we've asked and we've not had a problem.
No, sometimes you run into that issue at Cabela's as well. Cabela's generally lets people park in their parking lots overnight, but there will be like city ordinances that require them to put signs up, and they just don't enforce.
Actually, we're gonna head on down the road and go find us another spot, but let's talk about that. Now, there are tools for this, but before we get into those tools, we've spent at times maybe 30, 45, an hour, maybe even more, some nights just trying to find a good spot. San Francisco comes to mind.
St. Louis also comes to mind.
That was, well, in St. Louis and San Francisco were for two different reasons. San Francisco, It was just hard to find a parking spot, period, for a regular car.
Right.
St. Louis, we wanted to find somewhere that was
felt comfortable.
Safe, yeah. So, what are some common destinations? Well, doctor's offices, hospitals, hotels, and some of them will have like, you just look for a parking pass. You know, it's one of those things. We stayed at Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, we mentioned that, Home Depot and Lowe's.
Yep.
The other thing is that, and I know that a lot of people are like, oh, it's illegal and it's this and that. We've not had issues. And we've been doing it for 10 years. We've been halfway across, well, no, we halfway across the country and back at this point this year, and we've been able to street park like any other vehicle and not had a problem.
Right. Other places like Walmart, you can normally stay at Targets for the most part, or
stay out of the way.
Yep. Or like Planet Fitness parking lots are pretty good. Other kind of like gym parking lots where gyms are open like 24 hours or like open till 11 and then open up at 6 kind of thing. Yeah. Those are all good places to park. Grocery
stores tend not to be a place that we go to. It's not impossible, but funny enough, almost every grocery store has like a street behind it, and it's just wide open. It's kind of a funny thing.
We've never had good luck at like a Costco or a Sam's Club.
Costco will actually come up and
tell you to leave.
In fact, if you pull in the morning and you're just waiting for their doors to open and you're in an RV, they'll tell you to leave, which is wild. Occasionally apartments, but a lot of apartments do have like assigned parking.
Normally around parks tend to be pretty good on the outside of the parks, not in the parks, but on the outside of parks.
Yep.
Like on a side street.
And in some small towns like Republic, Washington, they even have hookups for you and encourage it up to 72 hours.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
A lot of times, like, there's enough people that have gone around and tried this that there are ways to figure out what kind of is a good spot and what's not such a good spot to try to stay at.
Yes, but when you're picking a spot that's just, you know, ideally the idea is that you're out of the way. So you don't want to be super visible. You do not want to park right in front of somebody's house. I mean, that's a great way to get a complaint, right? People don't like regular neighbors parking in front of their houses, let alone, you know, an RV.
Truck stops tend to also be another good spot you can pull in.
You know, and on that, I would actually argue against that, if only because you want to make sure that the truckers that are, you know, working long hours, they actually have federally mandated hours. You don't want to take up their parking if you can help it.
Right.
Sometimes there's enough room.
It depends on the truck stop.
Yep.
So if there's a big lot and there's a lot of people in it, you're probably good.
Now, we boondocked in the Florida Keys, and that is something that everybody says you can't do. They'll come in, they'll, you know, kick your door down or whatever. And That was not an issue for us. Although we chose an out of the way place. So along with not parking in front of somebody's house, of course, you don't want to park right in front of a school. And although if it's on the weekend, we've had pretty decent success. There was one time though, which was completely like, it was nonsense. So it was Savannah, Georgia. We actually got a knock from the police, and they rolled up like 4 cops deep, and they were like,
that had to do with a city ordinance about having RVs parked on residential streets, period.
But the funny thing, actually, it was a length restriction. It was a size length restriction. But we had a truck camper at the time, and so we kind of didn't fit that ordinance. Yeah. But we obliged because they let us know. Look, a lot of truckers will go over here, go over there. Out of the way. It was another out of the way spot. But that was it was a complaint from somebody that thought that we were trying to break into a house that was under construction. That's the only time that I can think of that we've ever had a problem in 10 years doing this.
Yeah.
That like, you pull in an hour later and cops show up. I mean, that was that was just the neighborhood itself, very NIMBY kind of deal.
I do think that if the cops do come and knock on your door and tell you you can't be parked where you are, yep, ask them for a good alternative. Say, yes, where can I go instead? And a lot of times they'll at least be able to point you in a general direction, if not give you an exact location to go to. So
there are a lot of folks that are really afraid, and they go, I don't want to let the cops know I'm living in here or this and that. And for all they need to know, I mean, sometimes less is more, but also sometimes more is more. It's okay to just treat them like a human being and be respectful, and but also, you don't have to be defensive. So you can just say like, hey, where's a good spot? Because all I'm trying to do is just stop for the night. I'm going to check the city out, spend a little, whatever it is, and then I'm moving on, what have you, or I work in the area. We've had great rapport with, when we did urban boondocking in a few cities, I had excellent rapport. It was always me with the local law enforcement, because we were like, hey, look, my wife works up the street, I work remotely, what do you guys think? And it turns out they were mistaken about the law.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we're problem solving at this point, right? Now the alternative to that, of course, is that you can just choose, if they have a note they need to leave, they can go ahead and leave that note. They're not going to tow you away while you're in the vehicle, or there's a possibility that you're in the vehicle, right? But go ahead and just maybe don't answer the door if you're not comfortable. I know a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do. It's like, if you're not comfortable, don't answer the door. If you're not 100% sure it's law enforcement and you would answer the door for law enforcement, if you're not sure, don't answer the door. What is the worst they're going to do, right? If somebody tries to break into your rig, this is a very different situation. Now this applies to vans and RVs. We've had a big school bus. We've had Class A, Class C trailers. It doesn't matter. It's all this, a truck camper. It's all the same. So I will say, when we had a minivan, we kind of had less issues, but the reality is people are pretty observant. And yeah. Now there are also tried and true spots, for the most part. And I have my favorite, and Emma has hers. So mine is freecampsites.net. It's all user submitted stuff. And there's also, it'll have sandy dumps, paid, free, do your research on these, and then spots, and then reviews. You can upload photos and things like that, or campgrounds that are paid, so there's all sorts of options. And you see this, and then if you find a good spot and you're like, hey, this is an easy one for me, especially in a place like Denver, right, where we spent 3 nights, no problem. But other people might say, well, I'm not seeing anything there. We use our tricks that we just told you about, but if you see something, go ahead and upload it to that site. It's a really, really nice thing. You have a favorite?
I do. My favorite is iOverlander, which is an app, not a website. What I like about it is that it seems like in my opinion, it's got a lot more places on it than freecampsites.net does. But they have it kind of sorted out by dump stations, fill stations,
formal and informal campsites. They even have laundry.
They have laundry. Yep, propane.
We use that today.
Yep, it's all kind of wrapped into one thing.
Yeah.
It's very clear too.
Vet services are on there. I just saw that today. That is a cool little deal.
Cool. I did not see vet services.
Yep.
But so it's broken into a lot of different categories. They have different little icons. You can click and you can see kind of the initial post about the spot, and then you can see other people's reviews as they've gone. So you can kind of see updates from the spots, which is actually really helpful to kind of see how it's kind of evolved over time in that location. And you can determine if it's a good spot for you.
Yep.
So I really like that about iOverlander.
I will say though that along this trip from tip of Washington down here now in Colorado, just kind of mentally keeping a tally, I think 80% of our spots we have found and enjoyed from freecampsites.net. Overlander, though, occasionally you'll find something. And this spot we're going to was also on Overlander.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of times that'll happen. Like, Joel and I kind of look in different places for spots. Like, he tends to look a little closer to like water bodies and stuff like that, whereas I kind of look along the road we're driving. So we just kind of come up with different places depending on who's looking, and preference. Like, he really likes to be by the water. I don't tend to look for that as frequently unless it like happens upon us, kind of thing.
There are other apps you can use, like Onyx is a mapping application. You can download the U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management. You can download all of those. I don't necessarily trust those. Those apps can be also kind of tough. It's hard to tell like what's, because you have to download the individual maps, right? Some of it is like, it's so paid, it's convoluted. I don't mess with any of that. But it's not a bad idea. If you are on, and we've recently made a video on this as well, if you are on BLM or U.S. Forest Service land, make sure that you're in the right spot. I will say we've never had a problem with it until this one ranger.
One time.
One single time, again, 10 years, and a good handful of times having, camped. We usually don't have a problem. And I think that that's the thing, is that a lot of people, though, especially if you're new to this, a lot of people get so technical. I don't know where I'm going tomorrow. And let's be completely frank, we don't know where we're going tomorrow. Right. And that is exciting for us, whereas a lot of people don't know, and they get very nervous. And there's always somewhere to go. And even in places that, again, like, there's ordinance against you living in your RV or whatever, or having we've been in some of the hardest places. I boondocked in New York City, of all places. If I can do it, you can do it. And there's so many people that are like, you couldn't do that in my town.
I think sometimes like it can feel frustrating if you can't find something like right off the gate.
Yeah.
But if you take a little time and like you're not trying to do it while you're driving in like someplace, like we tend to do it before we get in the car and drive for the day, or like for like that stretch, like we'll sit down and we'll figure it out real quick before we go.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll find like, okay, there's an area around here that's got like 6 spots. Let's just drive around there and see what feels best.
Yeah, or there's a pull-out. I mean, we've used just like pull-outs, because the reality is that once, you want to make sure obviously you're off the road enough, but once you close your blinds, it's the same no matter whether you're paying for a $200 a night spot,
right,
or you're on the side of the road.
You're in your house, yeah.
You're in your house. So it is one of the other thing is that if you are looking at doing, getting into this lifestyle, doing boondocking for the first time, there are groups and things like that. I would never consider going to like a Facebook group, but maybe that's a thing, But also, just while you're out there, just look around, right? Is there a van? And you can usually tell if somebody's living in a van. If they've got a vent, if they've got solar, that's a van life, right? But there are a few more points of etiquette here, let's say. So if you're on private property, say Walmart, staying more than 24 hours is really 12 hours for the most part. That's not always a great idea. Maybe you chat with them, whatever, or if there's a special circumstance, you're going to the hospital, let them know, communicate, But if somebody does knock on your door on private property, respect the private property, move along, feel free to answer. Maybe just know who it is, it's not somebody crazy.
Along with that, rest areas, which I don't know that we mentioned at the very beginning, which is normally a decent spot to stay.
Yeah.
Normally it's like an 8-hour limit. They tend to have signs, sometimes 12 or 24. Really, just kind of stay the night and go.
We've never had a problem in a rest area.
Just kind of stay the night and go.
You're just resting.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks say don't live out of your rig. We've seen it both ways. When we had slides, we'd pulled up to a Walmart or a rest area. You can put your slides out. Just don't be obnoxious.
Yeah, I think putting your slides out is different than living outside of your rig. Keep all your stuff inside your rig, but you can probably put your slides out.
Maybe don't barbecue, right?
Yeah.
Let's set up your chairs and this and that. Although we've seen it, and if you're out of the way and the Walmart doesn't care, then whatever. There's no hard or fast rule, except for do not dump your tanks
ever
on the street ever. Yeah. Rest areas, though, are kind of a good double whammy frequently, right? Where we will not only have a nice place to park, but we usually see fill-ups.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing.
Dump stations, yep.
And so we always dump and fill prior to us finding, on our route when we're planning that, as much as we plan, let's say, we'll go ahead and we'll try to line those up. And sometimes they are the same place. Yeah. But I will say, don't overstay your welcome. Do not dump those tanks, and try not to, don't look like you're living out of it, partying, you're going to move in. And don't put a bunch of crap outside.
No, and I think also just like make sure you take care of your trash properly.
Yes.
Like if you pull up and you happen to see like a cup or a bag or a trap or whatever outside of your rig, just pick it up and throw it away. Like, make it a little better than you found it.
Yep, leave it better than you found it.
And that way it doesn't look like you did it. Even if you didn't do it, if you were there, it kind of looks like you did it anyways. So
right.
just clean it up.
RVers park in that area, and that area is trashed.
Yeah.
And usually it's not. You know, we've also seen, let's say, waste bottles, especially at truck stops.
Yeah.
You've seen waste bottles. You know, if you've got gloves and you're comfortable with it, grab a bag, you know. That's not ideal.
We just keep a little trash grabber too. Like, it's easy to
tuck
the trash grabber away. And that way if you need it, then you have it and you can just clean up real quick and move along. Much
like when you're at a regular established campground and, you know, there's that kind of etiquette of don't walk through somebody else's site because, you know, even if it is public lands or whatever, it's an etiquette thing. You don't cramp somebody's style. You don't go through their stuff. I also recommend, and we've had this happen to us so many times, and again, if our winters are closed, who cares? But like, especially if there's a good amount of daylight or people are out, maybe leave some distance. So it is one of those things that like nobody wants to just be cramped up, because usually you can leave at least a couple space worth of distance. If you're, say it's two vans, you don't need to be parked right next to each other, right? Like that's just also not a good way to make friends, I don't think.
Yeah, people like their space. Everyone likes to have their own yard.
Yeah.
So leave a little yard.
Yeah, and maybe it's just a mental thing. Maybe it's like, you know, there are some folks that are paranoid about propane. And they're like, look, if they have an issue, I want to be farther enough away. You never know what somebody's circumstances. And hey, there are enough crazies. Leaving that distance gives you time. And time, you know, reaction time is always a good thing. It gives you options. And so options are what keep you safe. So, you know, it's one of those things, just from a tactical perspective, just, you know, don't park in front of somebody's house, don't park in front of somebody's rig, you know what I mean? And also, and I don't know that we've seen too many issues with this at all, but, you know, if somebody's angled a certain way, just make sure that they have the opportunity to get out. Don't block cement, you know, whether you're in a car or an RV or whatever. Yeah. You know, I think the rules are pretty much the same, whether you're wild boondocking or urban boondocking.
Right.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And, you know, HOA communities are not something we ever really come across and we ever want to stay in. If you're visiting somebody, you know, we've stayed in an HOA community while visiting your family.
Correct. And
that's another factor, right? Is like that person that is coming up and is like, what are they doing? They don't know whether you're in there and you don't know anybody. They don't know whether you know, so just act like you belong. If you act like you belong, you'll generally belong, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, so when we have stayed in urban boondocked, I mean, we spent, 3 years in one city. We stayed in Seattle for about a year.
Yeah.
I guess 2 or 3 cities. You know, but we rotated our spots and you could bike to work.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally we didn't stay more than, 72 hours max.
We followed city ordinances. Like, we did a little research knowing that we were going to be there for a while, and we looked up what the ordinances were, and we followed the rules.
Right. Especially because we knew it would be a repeated pattern. And we've had police drive by. It actually gives me a little comfort because, like, hey, you know we're here. We have nothing to hide.
Right.
And if you have nothing to, you know, you don't have to fear anything if you have nothing to hide. And just maintain your privacy.
And I think, like, one thing that we try to do, especially when we're urban boondocking, is, like, we're not blasting music with the windows wide open. We're not watching movies on a surround sound system where everything's rumbling and shaking. Like, we're trying to keep our volume down a little, be respectful of the neighborhood a little bit. I mean,
even if, and the way that we park, even if we were, although, you know, unless somebody was walking by, generally we're still pretty, you know, blunt. And I like loud music. We just don't have it in the trailer. We just wait until we're driving. So.
Right. So I think, like, that's one of those things where it's like little, like, common courtesy kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't realize you're there as much if you're a little quieter.
Also, I think that just in terms of, like, fitting in, if you just wave, you say hi. But I will say, though, especially, you know, you got to be cognizant, especially with dogs. Part of the reason that we do not answer the door at night often is because we have one big dog that looks like he could be mean. He's the best dog ever. And then we have one dog that sounds like Colt could be mean. You know what I mean? So, like, she throws her bark and it looks like Colt. And you never know how, say, a police officer or a neighbor or whatever is going to respond. And we've had people, one guy had 2 Rottweilers off leash, and, you know, those could have been the sweetest dogs ever. I'm not putting myself in that situation.
Right.
So, you know, in terms of just, again, tactically, it's like, these aren't complicated things. These are not things that you really have to prepare much for. This is just like how we live life. And a little common sense goes a long way. This is not, you don't have to take a class on this.
I also think in terms of, like, common sense, like, maybe don't put where you are on the internet when you're there.
Yeah,
maybe,
leave a space. Leave a gap.
Yeah. Even if it's just like your friends and family, like on Facebook or whatever, like maybe like you just text one person so they know where you are instead of like blasting it for everyone to know.
Or Find My Friends.
Yeah.
You know, or Google has an equivalent. Now let me ask you this. So I've been doing this for 10 years. Since we've been together, almost the entirety of our time has been, you know, boondocking in wild spots with the occasional campground or the occasional like mooch docking. With you thinking as a solo female RVer,
yeah,
and you have done this a few times on your own, especially with rental cars, you know, while we've been apart.
Yeah.
Any considerations specifically for women? Does it feel less safe as a solo woman than it does as a couple? Is there a special precaution that you have to take?
I don't feel any less safe. I do think I'm more aware of what's going on around me.
Versus me taking that on.
Yeah, because like, just as our relationship is, Jules just tends to be a little more aware of our surroundings than I am, just generally. So like when I'm by myself, I tend to like actually do become a little bit more aware just because I know I'm by myself.
Which is what it should be.
Which is what it should be, right? Like instead of knowing that Joel's kind of looking out for both of us.
Yeah. Which I kind of find it funny because I think that a lot of women think like men don't have anything to fear. And it's like, you don't have to live in fear, but you use common sense awareness. And I think there are a lot of folks that day to day in their regular life, you know, especially outside of living tiny, they don't have a lot of consideration for situational awareness. And, you know, sometimes that's really hard for folks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think one thing is that like, oh, Cracker Barrel's another good place to stay.
Yeah.
If either one of us, so we cumulatively or individually, if one of us doesn't feel safe, we don't stay.
Yeah.
If one of us is getting a weird vibe, like we trust one another that like if it doesn't feel right, we move on, even if it's one of us or both of us.
Graffiti is a good indication we don't want to be there.
Right, and so I think like it's got to pass the vibe check.
Yeah, and I know like and a lot of women like they talk about like I don't know what, you know, they say it's a special thing for women, and I have not found any evidence, you know, that like if you are situationally aware, male or female, I think the same tactics apply, the same common sense applies. I don't know that like. I think if somebody wants to attack, it seems pretty similar either way.
Yeah, and like maybe you have a pepper spray nearby. Maybe you know have a system for like checking your surroundings before you lock your doors, or like lock your doors.
Cams.
Yeah. So maybe you like have a system that works for you that makes you feel more comfortable, but I don't know that it's going to change any outcome necessarily. Granted,
like you were in, like when you've done it solo, you were in a car and didn't have tinted windows and things like that. But
yeah.
I mean, you also didn't have a restroom that you could use, so you had to be more aware of your timing there as well.
I think I am particularly lucky in that regard that like I have the bladder of a camel, and so I don't need to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I can go to the bathroom, get ready for bed, go to bed, sleep all night, and then wake up, and then I can normally hold it until I can get to like a grocery store or something to go. Some people don't have that luxury, so either you need to be able to figure out how to get to a bathroom around you safely in the middle of the night, maybe you have a headlamp or something, or you find a solution to be able to use the bathroom in your space, like a shiwi.
Yeah.
Which is not the most fun thing in the world, but it does the job.
Now you cannot go over the Canadian Border Patrol line from the US and bring OC or pepper spray. It is against the law. They will confiscate it. They will turn you around. They will fine you. That's a whole thing. They'll confiscate your vehicle. You have to pay, you know.
It's a whole thing.
But that is a good thing in my opinion to have, male or female. I don't see it as any different because it could be a small, really strong person. The one time we had an incident, it was actually a female that was trying to break into our truck.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it's male or female. You know, issues are issues, right? Bear spray, terrible thing to use, in my opinion, in a personal defense position, unless it's an animal and you are out of doors. This is a fogger. Read the specific directions. These are designed to be a fogger. If you are downwind of this, you're gonna have a bad time. If you are indoors, you're gonna have a bad time. OC is a gel typically. There are multiple types, but there's a gel and it's a stream. It's still gonna suck. You're gonna have to fight through that. But I would rather deal with that and have a stream of this than this. The other thing I think is a great equalizer is a firearm, and I think it's whether you're male or female, because again, you don't know if there was a problem, what you're coming up against. You don't know. And so, again, we have not had any sort of self-defense situation while living this way. We've used common sense. If anything seems sketchy, we leave. The best fight to be in is the one that you're not in, right?
I think that this is something that pertains particularly to people in the United States, though. In Canada, there's different situations.
Yes, it's a very, very different situation, and in other countries as well. But we have the right to self-defense. In most states, we have the right to self-defense here in the U.S. So if you're comfortable with the firearm, learn it, respect it, and hopefully you never. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right?
Yeah.
Right along there with a fire extinguisher, right? And so, if that isn't within your motivations, do it. And so, you're quite proficient with firearms.
Yes.
And we keep multiple.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know. With and without a firearm, like when you were solo lady traveling, right? Like
it doesn't make a difference to me, because ideally I'm putting myself in a position where I'm not going to need it regardless.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say someplace where I feel like I'm going to need to like sleep with it under my pillow kind of situation. So I think like in that regard, like hopefully I'm already setting myself up for success of not needing it.
But it's always accessible.
Right. By putting myself in a position like based on how I choose a spot.
Yeah. So, and again, these are all things that like you prepare for, but it's like make it muscle memory and then just know where it's at. Be prepared emotionally to handle that. But that's the beauty of it, is it's a great equalizer. And so even if it's a 300-pound, 8-foot-tall, burly guy, coming out, you're a 4'11", 100-pound female. Like it's a beautiful thing about that. But again, we've been all over the country. This has never been something that we've even remotely considered to be an issue.
Yeah.
Other than one lady trying to steal our tools in our truck. But the other thing is, of course, we already have our water. Ideally, in a perfect world, sometimes you can't find something. But when we're finding a spot, it's not always going to be level. We don't use levelers. Just because we don't have them, although that would be nice in some places. Other places, like, we don't want to do so much setup, so we can sacrifice a little tiny bit of comfort to be on level. Our fridge still works just fine either way, not a big deal. But especially if we get in like 4, 5, 6 p.m. And there's still light to be had, we go ahead and see if we can't point either south or west. Or if you're gonna be parked somewhere midday, point south. It just makes good sense. Especially in the winter. And so, again, you don't always get everything, but for the most part, we're pretty comfortable. We've also become very used to, sleeping. The outside noises never bother us, really. We've actually had a lot of noise at campgrounds and things to that effect. More so a lot of times than being on the side of the street. Which is funny enough. Sleeping at an angle has not really been much of a problem at all. You just get used to it. Like we see the RV right over here. Like, can we be kind of by them without cramping them? You can actually see there's an RV over there. There's 2 RVs over there, one on this side. But if we're going to pick one, the better view is on the left. But we also want to make sure that our dogs are not going to obviously get out into traffic or into a congested area. And so where are they going to go to the bathroom? That's a consideration, just something specific to us. There are so many people right now that are in like vests. Reflective vests, and
it looks like there's some sort of event nearby that people maybe park and walk instead of paying for parking, so they have an issue with people parking at Bass Pro Shops.
That very well
for events
could be. Okay, so we have a vista over here. Now we don't fit crosswise any longer with this rig, so we can't just like pull through and take up 4 spots. We are generally like 6 to 7 spots, but I'm going to put our door side on the over there. So this is one option. This is pretty close. I'm gonna go to the back though. And you can see, so a lot of people won't even put down their levelers. I don't see the problem with it. Ideally you put down like pads as well, but we're gonna try to avoid this area. And so we're gonna give these folks space. Typically, this almost would be too close to the door, but there's such a large lot that wraps around. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna park here. And in this case, we're not gonna put any jacks down. We have manual jacks and we don't have a drill right now. So I'm not going to, I'm not gonna do all that. But we also, so it does feel a little wobblier while we're, walking around, but in the morning we just get up and go. you get used to the wobble, and once everybody settles down, you know, you're in good shape. But this should do it. Now, the other thing, especially depending on which rig you have, in your whole setup, see, we have a tandem axle, therefore we have, you know, double the suspension. It's a lot less wobbly inside. We are slightly skewed towards the driver's side here, and then we are slightly tilted up, and I'd rather my head be up because our head is at this side of the rig. That's kind of a nice thing. If for some reason we were down, we could actually just drop our tongue. We have an electric jack, and so we can use one of the aux blocks that will protect their ground here, slot that under there, push it up. It doesn't take long at all, and that will raise us up if we needed it. In this case, this is just fine. I mean, ideally we'd be facing towards the sun instead of away from it, but I don't think we're probably right. The cool thing about this spot in particular, and there's always an advantage to every spot you go to, is we need to get our steps in for the day. Me more than you. You went to a yoga class earlier. Yeah. And Bass Pro Shops is where we're at right now. Yeah. Much like Cabela's, I think they're the same company now. Great for, you know,
walking around.
Yep. The dogs, we can toss the ball for them over here. It looks like, you know, for the most part, a lot of people, again, you know, they would go in and they'd ask, and we totally could, but again, we won't have an issue. We never have. I will say it's kind of funny the way the Endeavor did it, and everybody has different things. I wonder if they're having a hydraulic jack issue or something like that, because they're up on blocks like crazy. That's a lot of setup, and so, you know, to each their own, but.
Lucky for us, we can just pull up and be done.
Yep, and so we are now north of Colorado Springs. We know nothing about the area, but because obviously we kind of knew the spot was here, it's just more time that we can spend exploring and whatnot, so yeah. I think we're in good shape. Anyways, I hope that all of this information is helpful. I think that's kind of 10 years of experience wrapped up into, you know, a little video here.
Yep.
Thanks for watching, and see you on the road.
Bye, guys.
Bye.